Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to the podcast. On this episode, we're talking with a good friend of ours, Kyle Jackson.
So Kyle's the director of operations at a luxury hotel here in Chicago, and that's what we were talking about, a lot of stuff about hospitality.
Kyle kept coming back to the same point of pursue your passion and, you know what, value people. Because if you invest in your people and you have passionate people around you, your quality of product really can come out.
It comes down to humans are more important than profit, and if you invest in your humans, you're going to make more profit. So it's a great conversation. You could find the full version on our Buzzsprout, which is Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all those other directories.
Or watch the whole thing on YouTube.
Which you may already be doing, and the podcast coming right up. So enjoy the show.
What are you drinking? Obviously, it's a bourbon, but...
Woodford. Yeah.
Oh, so you have the
And
bottle.
you guys?
You have the bottle right there for you. So we're gonna see a
Have
bunch
you met
of.
me?
We're gonna have a bunch of.
No, I don't think so. How are you? Who are you?
It's just some random dude.
I'm drinking.
We're looking for Kyle Jackson.
That guy doesn't exist.
That guy doesn't exist.
He doesn't exist after 6 p.m.
No.
No, I asked you how work was today. Did you have to do a lot of like checking in on people, or were you just in your office all day?
I haven't sat at my office in 7 months.
7 months?
7 months since I've sat at my desk and worked.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because you've been doing a lot of stuff at like the front desk type things,
Well, I
right?
mean,
Yeah.
you've been doing a little bit of everything since the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we had to phase out 85% of our staff, which this weekend's change, we're going to have to phase out more people.
Oh yeah, that's gotta be tough.
Yeah. So
It is what it is, though.
it is what it is, to quote the president.
Yeah. Good old number 45.
He'll be
All right,
remembered
great.
fondly after he's gone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Instantly won't be considered one of the worst presidents of all time. The worst. I don't know who. Well, I guess you could. There's a few people you could go back on. And you're like, well, he was pretty bad.
I mean, you know,
In context, in the 21st century, 20th century, should be a pretty lot.
There's been worse. You know,
Yeah,
they're
but
his idols, but there's been worse. So
modern history. So, Kyle, we usually start off. We're in conversation with Kyle Jackson. Kyle, we usually start off with you giving us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I'm Kyle Jackson for now. I am a director of operations in the hospitality industry. I studied hotel restaurant management at the University of Missouri in Columbia, and then have served in a varied form of positions, everything from server and barback to event manager to front office manager to director of rooms and then director of operations. So 17 years of doing this.
Mhm.
So it is the only consistent is nothing is consistent in this industry. And, to quote Meet Joe Black, nothing is certain but death and taxes. And Brad Pitt's character, death and taxes, what a weird comparison. But the thing that I know also is certain is you got to eat and you got to sleep. So I thought I picked an industry that was pretty safe to be around forever. Turns out not so much.
Yeah, right.
So,
Ingenuity destroys people's, the idea of safety, because I don't think any industry is ever really safe, right? You for a long time, coal miners thought well, how else are you going to get at electricity? And then all of a sudden they're weeded out. It's the human condition to continue to improve on something. However, in the hospitality industry, and of course, we're talking a little bit more about Airbnb, about how that's been kind of rocking hospitality. Not rocking, obviously. There's still hotels, they're not closing down by massive droves, but there is that level of, it's going to come. There will be time for some boutique hotels, and it'll rise back up, and it ebbs and flows, just like a lot of things that we've spoken to about on the podcast.
yeah, I mean, those are things that happen in every single industry. You know, coal miners thought they'd be around forever. Ma Bell thought the phone system of ringing up a, a receptionist to connect you to somebody down the street, that'd be the way forever.
Right.
You know, Walmart thought they'd have the market cornered forever. But the only thing that is forever is that nothing is forever. Everything
Yeah.
does and must change.
Right.
It must evolve. And in order to survive it, you have to see it first, accept that change is inevitable, and then decide how you're going to conquer that moment to not only survive, but to succeed. And so that is the daily challenge of my role as the director of operations, is to take the vision of my brand and general manager and then execute to a level that exceeds expectations in order to survive at this point.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, great. Well, we're really looking forward to getting you on because you do have a really wait for that reputation of being, especially people keep dragging you back, and I loved hearing a little bit more about your history, about how you were down in Texas because the people down there needed you down there to run your run one of the hotels. I can't remember the chain name for the life of me at the moment. But you're that go-to guy that goes down and gets people motivated and really, really focuses on the human capital aspect of hospitality and how important that is.
Right. So to me, the brand was Sheraton.
Thank you.
By the way, I don't think that I have created or invented anything new. I don't think that there's anything that I do that is unique other than in all of this, in profitability, in ingenuity, and some other word that has an E at the end of it for continuity. Oh, there you go. To me, it is about humans. I got into the service industry for a reason. People are my passion. I love people. I care about people. There is a reason why we are the rulers of the world, but we are not the biggest animal. We are not the strongest animal. We've not been here the longest. So it means something. And I think a lot of things get lost when we put profitability in front of people. My strategy has always been and will always be success or failure. Invest in people and people will perform for you. So I have been blessed to be a part of a lot of, well, not a lot, it makes it sound like a job hunt, but I've been blessed to be a part of a lot of companies and cultures that have done very, very well, and in turn makes me look really, really good. And the only thing that I've done is make sure that everybody that ever works with and for me feels supported and feels set up for success. And then they are free to go. I've got to micromanage you to produce 13 room credits in a day, then I'm not doing my job right. If I have to, move your mouth to greet the guest appropriately, then I'm not doing my job right. My job is to take people who have a passion for what they do, whether it's their calling or just their career for now, but do everything with excellency. And in order for you to do that, you need to have a colleague, a boss, a friend who believes in you. Somebody has to be in your corner. And that's what the service industry is. We are the people who are in everybody's corner. Yeah. You want to go out and celebrate, you come and you dine with us. You have drinks with us. You want to get out of town and relax, you come and you stay with us. You need a place to stay while you care for your loved one in the hospital down the street. We are your respite from the rest of the world. We invest in people and I invest in my team. So, I've had the opportunity to travel the country in my roles. And I don't have to flip the script. I don't have to change anything. It's get to know the people, invest in them, believe in them, and let them know their worth. And then they pay that forward.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I think that's a perfect angle for the hospitality industry to continue to evolve and continue to move forward, is that if you invest in the people rather than looking at the dollars and cents, and you don't even have to really look, I guess newspapers and hospitality are not the same, Frank. Sorry. But, you know, in the newspapers, when they did put profitability in front, right? And now you're looking at news organizations that's all it is profitability. And that means conflict. And that means, you know, crazy one-sided opinions that's where they're going to get eyeballs. That's how they're going to get people to watch and everything. And it's unfortunate that the quality of it, and Jack has been watching the Columbia, you were talking about how news pundits, their point was to get to the actual truth, the space mission.
Oh, right. Because I was watching the Challenger.
Challenger, not Columbia. Sorry.
The Challenger explosion.
Was that 88?
Yeah, 86 or 85 into 86, something like that. It was around like 85, 86. But it was just like, you know, you watched what was happening there, and you could definitely tell that there's a difference in the way the news was being broadcast. It was much more. It was like, let's try to find the truth, as opposed to outlandish conspiracy theories on both sides. I mean, you know, you gotta. It's maybe your flate. You might. It's one of those things where you see one side's absolute insanity more than your own side. But it's not, maybe it's not 100% the same, but there's definitely a spectrum where it's like, this is just as crazy as what they're saying on this side, but we don't see it. But that's here nor there.
Well, that was just a comparison to show that, like, with an industry that does revolve around people, and at a time when they were investing in people with newspaper and news, and there were reporters out there, and they weren't just group buying stories and everything, that the quality was much higher.
That's the truth. I mean, in anything, from news to hospitality to your friendships to your relationships with your family and your loved ones, facts matter, and you have to be honest and you have to be genuine. One of the most famous quotes that comes to mind is during the civil rights era of the 60s, when Malcolm X was asked what he thought about all of the unrest in the country. And he said, America's chickens are coming home to roost. And that is an absolute fact, in the fact that if we do things for sensationalism and we do things for feel-goodism, and we ignore the truth of what the matter is, whether or not it supports our narrative of things, truth will be borne out. Truth crushed to ground will rise. And that is absolutely true. And it has a domino effect on everything. If you go back and you look at the media, regardless of whatever anybody's political leanings are, over the past, I'd say 10, 15 years, sensationalism took over actual reporting. It was, who can I get drawn into my story? And then the news media, print and video, became victims of their own doing at some point. And in our own industry, you start looking at what hotels and restaurants and travel industry all became about making more profits. You see buyouts by real estate investment trusts. You see venture capitalists and hedge funds taking over restaurants. It's no longer the people who have the passion for the service making the decisions. It's the dollar making the decision. And that has its reward. Profitability, shares go up, notoriety goes up, but it also has its effects, which means the service, which means the product you provide. If it's not about the service, if it's not about the product, and it's only about the profits, then you diminish the service and you diminish the product for the profit, because profit is supposed to be an effect of hard work, not the cause. But we've put the cart before the horse. You know what I mean? And that's in every single industry. Almost none of us do what we do because we love it, save you guys. Most of us do it because it gets us a check. Most of us do it because it means we still have health insurance. Most of us do it because it attaches some sort of value to our life, when life should be about doing what is the fulfillment of you, and you enjoy the benefits, whether they're monetary, whether they're notoriety, or anything like that. That is windfall from you doing what you were meant to do.
Right.
doing what is in your heart and what your passion is. But when we decide that, and it's not even a decision, I don't want to say decide, we all have to work, you work or you die. And so we've put passion on the back burner, and it's what is profitable. So if we as individuals have to do that, how much more do our businesses and our corporations have to do it? We're locked into this unending cycle of give all that I have to make profits, hoping that my profits will allow me to do that which I love. And I want to say Gandhi? No, it was a different monk. He had glasses. Well, Gandhi had glasses. This one was a little...
He did have glasses, you're right.
This guy, now I feel like it's an old Native American saying. Anyway, some dude said that he did not understand the modern man. You work yourself to death so that you can enjoy life. And then you live your life working and you never get to enjoy it. You spend all of your money recuperating from all the work you had to do, and you missed life. I've completely misquoted that, so I'm going to call it my own.
Well, it's just.
Did you just say that you were a monk?
In some circles.
Well, with no glasses on.
Yeah, they're. Yeah, you don't have glasses, so you couldn't have been the monk you're talking about, unless you have glasses somewhere. Oh, okay, there you go. But I feel like I think I don't know if I've heard this somewhere, but maybe I am quoting myself just like you quoted yourself. I mean, the biggest con job ever did was you sold your life for a 401k. Basically, is what they do. That you sell your the best years of your life to retire at 60, and that retirement age keeps going up. And so there is a point where it's like you have to do what you love to do, and I feel like. If we're talking about profitability, if you got a bunch of people who don't like what they're doing, I mean, they're not going to be very efficient at it.
Right.
They're not. They will only work as hard as the whip is cracked.
Exactly.
Right.
So when there's not bills cracking at them, when there's not, the kids' college funds cracking at them, when there's not, your boss jeopardizing or threatening to jeopardize your job if you don't produce X, Y, and Z, then people aren't going to. Think about how many people go to work just to get through the day.
Right.
And I specifically chose the industry that I'm in because we are full of some of the craziest, funniest, most passionate, most artistic people out there. And it used to be fun. Obviously, this year has not seen many fun moments at all. But now it becomes this goal where someone like me, whose job it is to worry about EBITDA and to worry about profitability and labor productivity, but now you've got your front desk agents have to worry about that, and your busser has to worry about productivity, and your housekeeper has to worry about is this making money and making sense? And their jobs were never designed to do that. Their jobs were designed to accomplish a goal and to have something that you can be proud of. I tell my housekeeping team all the time, your work is your signature. It is you signing off saying, this is my worth. This is what I am. How good I am at my job is me telling you who I am as a person. But when the associates disconnect from that, when it's just accomplish goal A, B, and C in order to get to goal D, you lose a lot. But I mean, think about it. That's the way we educate ourselves. You go to school to get good grades. You don't go to school to learn. You go to school to get good grades and to prove that you are able to retain the information that was provided to you in this time frame. We are being conditioned to be cogs instead of people. And I specifically chose the service industry because we're all personality. You can sleep anywhere. I mean, now that people are renting out their house on Airbnb, you can literally just lay your head just about any place on earth. So why would you pick Kyle's hotel over the hotel next door or the apartment across the street? Why? Because we make your money matter. You don't worry so much about how much it costs to stay at my hotel because it's worth it to you. Because you feel welcomed, you feel pampered, and you feel appreciated. And you don't get that in an Airbnb or a VRBO. And you don't get that at the next chain's hotel because they're working some other gimmick, loyalty points or free cheese and meats in the lounge. Our angle is service. We are passionate about people, and that's what we sell ourselves on. And then once it becomes a gimmick, it's pretty quick to see through that. Yeah,
and I think well, even when you're saying we sell ourselves because we care about people, it's so overused. It's a lot like storytelling in our industry. People say we do storytelling, and they don't do anything even remotely close to storytelling.
Right.
It's just kind of that thing, and I guess that I don't know. I'm trying to think about old like hotel experiences that I've had where I know that's like it's almost like standard conversation. Or standard marketing now for a hotel, and it kind of feels like, well, you better care about people because if you don't, then like what are you doing? We're never gonna go back, right? It's just like and so then you go to other stuff like you said, loyalty points and everything else to try to get people to come back, or even try to continue to compete with Airbnb, whose prices are probably lower than staying a night at the Sofitel, but you have to make up that difference somehow, some way in between there. And I think that it actually takes people like yourself who's, actually trying to not only manage people, but elevate people to be able to show that and show that type of value for a guest who has that choice. They have a million choices.
And that's one of the things that it's like in our industry, we're talking about marketing and we're talking about content creation. One of the first things is like, the reason why advertisements don't work is because they're inherently inauthentic and disingenuous. And so the best way to attract the younger generation. So this goes, I'm assuming this trend is going to continue until all of a sudden Gen XYZ or whatever the hell the next one's going to be called.
Do we switch to numbers after Z?
No, then it goes Gen XX and then Gen XXX.
I'm all about that generation.
Right, I know. I'm about to say that's when things start to get really fun.
Yeah, you're right on my alley there. How many years I got to that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
until
well, whatever that number is, add 18, right?
Yeah, right. Until that next generation all of a sudden is like, you know what? I just want cookie cutter homogenized bullshit like they had in the 60s. That's what I want. But until that happens, I feel like it's just going to get more because the internet exposes everything, and it's one of those things where if you're not authentic, if you're not on brand for anything, then all of a sudden it becomes really, really easy to see through the facade. And that's one of the things where it's like you have to be genuine and you have to be authentic. And one of the best ways to do that is to build up your staff and say, use your personality, use your passion. That's the only way you're going to really attract people to come back, especially in a very competitive industry like the hotel and hospitality industry. I mean, people for a long time love going to McDonald's, and now McDonald's is like, you want to go to McDonald's?
McDonald's is what?
You want to go there? All right, I guess we'll go. I mean, we know what we're going to get.
McRib is coming back, then you have to go there.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, I mean, they do little things here and there, but it's just like, do you want something homogenized, or do you want something really that experiences you, or that you experience something, really
that experiences you? Well, let me tell you something.
That's true too. I mean, you want something that.
Where is this McDonald's? Because I want to go.
This McDonald's experiences you. It's like, what?
Well, no, but you want something that is a unique experience. Like if you're going, especially if you're going to stay somewhere, you don't want like, oh well, I stayed at this hotel I stayed at a Comfort Inn in Wisconsin, and it was no different than the one that I stayed at in Chicago. And you're like, oh, is that really the experience you want to come to Chicago with? You want a unique experience that gives you.
And that's part of it, though, right? Because your Comfort Inns aren't about the experience. Your Comfort Inn is about the price, and being able to have a comfortable stay at a reasonable price, much like McDonald's is about fast food that sometimes is gimmicky, but it it's convenient. I was getting ready to say it's on almost every corner, but there's not one in my neighborhood till you get over by Wrigley Field. So that example doesn't hold up. But in other areas, there's a McDonald's all over the place. In my small town in Southern Illinois, there were 5 McDonald's, and it took less than 5 minutes to get anywhere in town. So why you needed 5 McDonald's, I don't know. It's kind of like Subway.
You didn't know that the one down on Main Street, that French restaurants are a lot better than the one down on Southern Street.
Listen, people believe that.
Yeah,
and that's a real thing people tap into, and for lack of a better way to say it, manipulate that. You think the fries on Main Street taste better than the fries on Broadway. They're the same fries. It's about the experience that you have on Main Street versus the experience you have on Broadway, where to be on brand, you want people to have the same experience in your hotel that in Chicago that they would have in your hotel in New York, but without being the exact same cookie cutter. But McDonald's on Main Street and McDonald's on Broadway don't have anything different other than who's working on Broadway and who's working on Main Street, and that's what it really boils down to.
There you go.
And it's just making sure that what you're offering is as authentic as it can be, even if that authenticity is really just duplicity of a model.
Right.
You're an authentic duplicate of what someone decided in a boardroom speaks to the current consumer in this demographic for this time period,
Right.
Like growing up in the 80s and 90s, McDonald's was revered. And it wasn't until people began to question processed meats and chemically produced products that people started to say, well, for $5, I'm also not getting any healthier. I'm also feeling terrible when I finish eating this meal. So then McDonald's answer was to take that exact same value meal, change nothing about it, but increase it $4. Like, do you know now a quarter pounder with cheese value meal is like $10?
Yeah.
Nothing's changed about the product. Nothing at all. But now it's $10, which I
But Kyle,
understand.
wait, hold on. If it's more expensive, it has to be better.
We tell ourselves that.
Yeah.
But
a
I
lot
think
of
that's
things-
something within luxury, even luxury hotels, though, that you assume that the more expensive something is, the better it's going to be. But that doesn't necessarily translate to your point again, because of, it depends on who's working there and what their motivations really are, or if they feel valued. I can go and tap in on my own corporate experience at FedEx. You watch a commercial for FedEx, you think that they're all so happy to be there. Well, let me tell you something. When you're sitting on the conveyor belt talking to all these people, they're all going like, I am only here for another 3 years because that is the least amount of time until I can retire. Yep. I'd hear the old people, right? They were the ones that started it back in the 80s. And they're like, oh yeah, back then it was about teamwork. It was about, we all felt valued. And then all of a sudden that corporate machine started. It was like, well, now you don't get paid for breaks. And now you have to take an hour break or an hour lunch in the middle of a shift. So now instead of working 8, you're working 9 hours, even though before you were willing to work 12 hours because you felt valued and you loved the work that you were doing. And the quality drop off between you getting a package, and I'm sure you've experienced this, if you get a package from Amazon or something else and you're looking at it like, what in God's name happened to this thing in transit? It really, when you put it inside of a train, at FedEx we use trains, and inside of a plane, and a plane and a train and a boat, and then into a trunk of a Toyota Camry. No, but when you put it into a cargo of a train you
are loving trains right now.
I'm so sleepy.
Frank has trains on the mind.
Into a plane, right? In reality, when you put a train into a plane, when you put a package into a plane, into the cargo of a plane.
Are you trying to say plane?
I'm saying plane.
Okay, so you want it to be in a plane.
Into a plane, yeah.
I have no idea.
Trains. They don't use
trains. I'm fine with trains. You don't use trains at all?
No.
Not FedEx. I don't think so. It's
Well,
transmodal, but I don't think that they have ever used a train.
No,
They used to, maybe not even.
No,
that.
no.
Anyways, they put
just
them into
didn't
the
know
belly of a plane.
Oh, okay, a plane.
Okay,
I'm talking
and
about
when the
planes.
package gets off the truck, for the most part, it looks pretty good. And the way that they stack them into these cargo things, and then they go into a plane, and then they come out of the plane, and then they get delivered somewhere between the time that they get off the plane and to your front door. It looks terrible, and that has nothing to do with the way that it got there. It is literally who was handling the packages and how much did they care about placing it on a shelf. Or even when, say, I would pick it up, do I put it on the floor? I mean, some things you have to go on the floor, but if it's a small package, do I put it on its own little shelf? Do I corner it well? That's all people. That's got nothing to do with it.
But how much of that has been people being pushed to increase productivity, though?
Right.
Like
yeah.
instead of, I don't think it's people being careless about it. I think their focus from maybe not so much FedEx, but from a corporate standpoint is you need to be able to do X amount of work in Y amount of time.
Sure.
And so instead of caring about what the package is, they only care about how many packages they move through their space in a certain amount of time.
Well, it's got to come down to a lot of just how much time do you actually have to get from place to place. And there are systems in place that are like this, how you're supposed to stack stuff and all that other garbage. But from what I experienced and the people that I've talked to, it was a lot about like, I don't care. I have to get from here over there 5 minutes. It's like, it's got to get in the truck. It's got to get in the truck and I got to go. And to be honest, I don't care what that package looked like when I picked it up to the time that I got back to the station, because I had to get there to there, or I didn't have that amount of time, but I just didn't want to be here anymore. Like I just wanted to go home. And that's lost. And FedEx lost a lot of its magic from it's like looking at dying stars. Like you knew these people were really passionate about it and now they are just done. They're just done.
And just being candid, that was a calculated decision. They looked at the opportunity cost. Shall we care about what we're delivering, or do we deliver faster than we used to? Did like this, and they were like, screw caring about the package. It can come beat up and bleeding, even though it's just like a stereo, but you got it within the 3 to 5 business days that we promised, because we made you pay the extra $18 to get it then. That also speaks to us as consumers, because what we want has changed. I mean, in reality, looking in my industry, we're going to automation. The pandemic has accelerated this probably about 5 years before I thought it was going to do that. But your front desk agents are going to be replaced by your phones. Your housekeepers are already being replaced by little robots that deliver towels and amenities. Several hotels have them. It's a weird concept. It's not really AI, but it's just this little thing where you go on your phone, you go on the app, you say, I need 2 extra towels. This little machine shows up at your door, knocks on your door, you open it, it opens up and places 2 towels in front of you. And that's because that's what the consumer is signaling to the business they're willing to spend money on: convenience and speed. In my hotel, the thing that you can Google us and just read our reviews is we seem to care. We are genuinely concerned about the health, happiness, and well-being of our guests. It is not like, people talk about we're a family, which I thought about this earlier, and I was like, that's not a term I really would use. If I were a business in 2020, I would abandon the term family, because you don't do to family what most businesses are doing to their employees right now.
Well, you've never been a
Just
part
don't.
of
Not with a lot of reservation, at least.
Yeah, and it's just the reality is, I think after this year they have to stop saying that, and you can't say, oh, treat your hotel like you would if family's coming over. That being the inverse of that, because normally with family you're like, who gives a shit? but it is better to think of every guest, every customer, every client as dignitaries, as people that are of a high reputation that you want to impress, because they are. From the person who's spending their last dime to stay with you, to get away from their kids for the weekend because they've been stuck in the house for 7 months, to the person who stays here every week because their business doesn't stop, so they have to travel. Everybody's dollar matters. Everybody's dollar matters. And I think and I hope what is going to sustain my team and my hotel is that remembrance that your money matters with us, that we know. And I find it incredibly cheesy, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't matter to me. When you land on a plane at the tarmac, right?
Or a train.
At the tarmac, at the same tarmac.
I want to say either American Airlines or Southwest were one of the first ones to say it, but they come across the speaker and they say, we realized that you had several options in choosing your flight carrier. We thank you for choosing Southwest or American Airlines. You should see how much of an impact it had on me, but it did. Because every time it lands and I get that thank you, because we realized you had several choices, and I'm sitting here thinking, I didn't really choose you. Kayak said you were $50 less than the other person, but you treated me like I picked your brand and you appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel like my money matters. And I think there is too much disconnect between who people choose to spend their money with and what other options they have. Like, we take for granted that someone chooses to stay at our hotel or chooses us to make their movies or commercials. Everybody has a choice. They have a choice to pick you. Even if you've got the market cornered, they can just choose not to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing is, we've gotten to this point where we see their money, but we don't see them. And then when you keep looking at the money, you keep waiting for the money to react. Money's never going to react. It's paper. It is a made up thought that we've said, because this person has done X amount of work or inherited X amount of revenue from work previous generations have done, their value is worth this. And since their value is worth this, they can give this much of their value to people. It's all theoretical.
Yeah.
I mean, you see this more and more now that we're not trading goods and cash and gold anymore. We're typing numbers in a computer and sending it back and forth. And I think that's what's disconnected us. I know you guys talk about your bartering endeavors. And I think that really gets people back to being able to visualize worth to things.
Sure.
Because when your money is just an amount of numbers on a screen in a bank that you've never stepped foot in, I can't tell you the last time I've actually gone into a Chase bank, or, you know, I don't even really handle cash personally. Like at work, people will still use cash, but cash used to mean something when you'd have to count out that money, because it's a physical reminder of the work that you've done.
Sure.
But now as we've gotten in this advanced age where, you know, I was adding up my Grubhub for the week, and once I crossed that $200 threshold, I was like, how? It's Wednesday. How? The idea of it is, it's not, it would have been a lot harder if I had to go to those restaurants and hand them that money instead of I just pick up my phone and say, I want chicken wings, so I'm going to hit this amount of buttons and it tells me chicken wings are going to be here in this amount of time. And then they show up.
Right.
And it's not until like I'm looking at reconciling, because rent's due on Sunday, that I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, I should have, well, I'm several hundreds of dollars lower than I thought. And then I start looking at stuff and I'm like, I really spent $50 on that? Why would I spend $50? And it's because at the time I didn't even think about the money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that same mentality about spending money, which I am the worst person to ever consult about spending money.
It's true, folks.
It's
Said
true.
it's true, folks.
Oh yeah, just the absolute worst. If this
Well, you know,
conversation detoured into financial planning and smart investments, I would just close my computer and go spend money.
Let's go spend money.
Drown your sorrows in some food.
Yeah, but like to me, it's because I no longer handle it. I no longer have to think about it. So it's the same way with service. When your service is tied back to a representation of you, if that's disconnected into just another cog in a wheel, you don't think about it. You don't think about it until enough of you has been drained away for the sake of productivity or profitability that you're like, what has become of me?
Yeah.
You know? And that's really where I try to make it matter. And you could ask any one of the people who've ever worked for me, some probably not so much. But the difference between me and other colleagues, other employers is I look you in the eyes and my word is my bond. It used to be a time a man's handshake was as good as a contract, especially in the city of Chicago. And I still take that to heart because I'm only as good as my word. And my word doesn't mean anything if my word changes depending on what's profitable or what's productive. Yeah. My word has to be my word. My values have to matter. And I think that's part of not only what is deflating my industry. I mean, the pandemic decimated the hospitality industry, not because it's an invisible virus that is harming and killing people, but because we decided that this industry is able to be sacrificed. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember the most gut-wrenching words to me were after St. Patrick's Day, when everybody, self-included, didn't abide by the government's mandates that we not congregate in bars because it was St. Patrick's Day and nobody was thinking it was real. We're America, we're untouchable. This affects third world countries. It doesn't affect us. And I remember a reporter interviewing the current occupant of the White House and asking, what do you say to the restaurant and service industry people who fear their company won't come back? Looked her square in the eyes and said, it'll come back, and maybe under different ownership and a different name, but it'll come back. And it wasn't him, it wasn't his words, it was the truth of it that kind of cut me to my gut, is everything is sacrificial if the price is right. Mm-hmm. If it makes more sense to let the current industry die and then your venture capitalists, your hedge funds, your REITs come in and buy it next to nothing and make it what they want to be and call it laissez-faire, then so be it. But I don't believe that in the world's first democracy and oldest democracy, in the world's once superpower and world power, that anybody that's working and following a passion and a dream should be sacrificed for profitability. I think we as a people, and not just Americans, just as the world, we've forgotten people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We've, and for all of its advantages and developments, technology, artificial intelligence, things like that have cost us a little bit of something. And that little bit of something is each other. We don't connect like we used to, and we don't matter to each other like we used to, because we've replaced profitability with people, or we've replaced people with profitability. And that's part of why I stay in the industry that I'm in. I had several people tell me when this pandemic first broke out, they were like, you've been director of operations for several multi-million-dollar corporations. Your skill set can be intertwined and used in a manner of different opportunities. And I said, but since I was in the fifth grade and built a hotel diorama for a class project about what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to have a hotel, a restaurant, and an amusement park.
What happened? We haven't heard about the
Yeah,
amusement
right.
park. We've heard about the
we heard
hotel
about
and the restaurant.
Well, see, this is what happened. There's a little game called Roller Coaster Tycoon that came out for computers first.
I love Roller Coaster Tycoon.
We've only played it for a computer.
Yeah. Well, where else was it? Where is it now? Is it on? Is it? It's not on console, is it?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's only on PC. Go ahead.
I like to sound like the old, outdated man.
You got us to go like, yeah.
Well, we got it
But
for
Roller
free.
Coaster Tycoon first came out. I was probably in 7th grade, maybe, and I started building my dream roller coaster, and people kept falling off the roller coasters. And
This guy cares about people.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe I don't have the passion and drive to manufacture and build roller coaster parks like I thought I did. I thought it was all fun and games, loop-de-loops and way up and downs and
Well, you know what?
all of that.
Well, you know what?
And
Frank
I
would
learned
do?
a little bit about the logistics, and I was like, yeah, that's not so much for me. So I gave that one up. And I said, I want to own a restaurant and a bar and a hotel. I want my place to be a place people want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I want to always be someone people come to for comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And, I try to manifest it in my relationships, and, I try to manifest it in my work. Some people are great at money, not me. Some people are great at science, not me. And some people are great at people. And I like to think I'm pretty good at people, and I want to try to be good at people. So I show people what I've got, and people embrace it, and that should be enough,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the way Frank would play Roller Coaster Tycoon is that when there was an angry person in his park,
right.
he would drown them.
We had a
Pretty
drowning
sure
pool.
Your ratings go down for that.
No.
Surprisingly,
he had a very good, highly rated park.
because
When there was-
anybody who disagreed,
anyone who was having a bad time,
you couldn't
was
kick them
put-
out.
was
I mean,
put in a
there was no way
drowning
to kick
pool.
them out. Most of the time, they're on their way out, but they make people mad as they cross by. And this is Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, you can't kill people.
Yeah.
They got rid of that
I
feature.
think you could on Roller Coaster 1 on purpose.
Yeah.
You could forget to finish the ride and send them barreling to their death.
wow, you
But,
couldn't do that in a lot of.
See, Roller Coaster Tycoon, you couldn't do that. Or 2, you couldn't do that.
So
like,
he
you
would make
couldn't
a little,
open up the ride
he'd
if
make
it wasn't ready.
He'd make a little pool, and then he'd drown them, and then he'd put one of the cartoon old-timey tombstones. And there was like a whole graveyard in the park.
But everybody, my profitability was through the roof.
Right. That's essentially what now you're doing. He was putting profits and high ranking over humanity.
Right. Well, you know what? The next time that we come over, I'll bring the laptop and we can play Planet Coaster, because we've been playing Planet Coaster, which is essentially the
What is
same
that?
thing.
It's the same
Roller
thing.
Coaster Tycoon. That's the same thing
With better graphics.
with better graphics. Then that's actually a lot of fun to do, but it gets kind of like a handful, and you can't kill anybody, so you won't have to worry about making a roller coaster. Nobody can actually exist on or anything else like that, or falling apart or anything. But I think it's really important what you said about the human aspect to a lot of things, and that's really the reason why we wanted to have you on the podcast, was for that specific thing, was for the humanity that is in business and that people don't really either remember or they sacrifice in favor of profit, or they don't realize that a happy employee, a motivated employee, a respected
is a
employee
profitable employee.
is a profitable employee, because they'll go beyond. And what people try to do is try to make happiness out of, say, money. Like if you invest money in somebody and you give them more money. But we had Matt Granados on the podcast, and this is kind of the realm he's in and the work that he does, where he's like, you know what, instead of giving them a $10,000 bonus you can't afford, why don't you find out what they're interested in and pay for that? And so the example he gave was like, if somebody's like, all he wants to do, or he keeps asking for a raise every year, and then you ask him, okay, so why do you want the money? And it's like, well, I've always wanted to learn how to sail. And then instead of giving him the money, you pay for the sailing lessons. And that shows that you care about them as a human outside of the corporation. You care about their enjoyment of life outside of the corporation, and that you can really understand who they are. And then when you cross by them, you have conversation pieces, and you actually get to know them on a real level.
You're respecting them and you're knowing them on a human level as opposed to employee A. You know them as Bob, the guy who likes to sail,
Right.
and that's huge. If you knew something about your employees, it makes them so much more passionate and so much more like willing to work.
And that's not the only reason why you should do that. You should do that because you're a good human being, right?
Right. Well,
so,
it's just, exactly
right.
And it's like I had a argument with one of my friends the other day about basically he was like, so if you had a job, that was paying you $200,000 a year, you had a wife that you liked, and you had you had 2 kids,
wife that you like,
a wife that you like.
That is a hard thing to find.
A beautiful wife that you liked. You had 2 kids that were great. Would you take? But you couldn't do what you were passionate about. And I said, under no circumstances would I take that deal. And he called me selfish. And he was like, isn't that selfish? And I'm like, no, it's not selfish because I know myself. I'm like, if I'm in a job I fucking hate, I'm going to resent my family. I'm going to resent my beautiful, I'm going to resent the job. I'm not going to be doing a very good job, even if they're paying me $200,000. And I told him, I'm like, hey, you know what? If you told me I get to write for TV or I get to write movies and TV and work on craft and tell stories, but you're only going to pay me $50,000 a year, I'd take that job. I'd take it.
Well, and here's the thing about that is families, spouses, children have become kind of a requirement.
Yeah.
Much like making 6 figures is a requirement in order to be successful. In order to have a good life, you're supposed to have a happy, beautiful spouse and well-adjusted, doting children. When those are things that should typically be the results of falling in love and creating a loving environment. Because if you had a beautiful wife and
that you liked.
2 great kids,
that you liked,
a beautiful wife that you liked and 2 great kids, and that was, she was what your passion is, and their happiness is what your passion is, you wouldn't give a shit what job you had.
Right.
You'd find ways to still perform your passion, but your first passion would be them. And that's the thing, is we keep being told it's either or. Either you have a passionate career you care about, or you have a family that it's worth giving up your passionate career. And why does it have to be a choice of either or?
Right.
Well, because I mean, my main argument was like, if I'm in pursuit of my passion, I'm going to find people that surround me that, that I actually like and care about. So like the opportunity of finding the person that, potentially I have that beautiful family with, that of course I like, is much more high if I'm doing the things that I like and I feel in a certain way that I'm confident in. I don't feel like it's one of those things where you shouldn't have to think, oh, I'm going to give up something for something. It should be, why can't I have what I want?
And you can.
Yeah.
You can. But we're being told in order to be profitable and productive, it's either or.
Yeah.
I say fuck that.
Exactly.
Like, who decided that in order to be happy, that you needed $200,000? Because I am living proof, and one of my best friends always loves to throw in my face. Oh, it was years ago. He was like, you always said if you make X amount of dollars, you'd be happy and you wouldn't want for anything in the world. And he's like, you now make 1.5 times that, and you're the most miserable I've ever seen. And I genuinely, I think back to my days as like a server. I loved my life. Now, everything that I loved about my life back then, I can't talk about on this podcast, but life was good. My cares were minimal.
Mm-hmm.
My mistakes were temporal. If I fucked up today, tomorrow's a new day, brand new thing. Wish, wash, pish, posh. And I could pay bills.
Yeah.
In cash. And I wasn't paying as much taxes. But to me, the more I worked and the more I achieved, the less it was about me and what makes me happy. It became about being productive and profitable. Yeah. And not just for the company, but for the image I had created of me. I often think back to what young Kyle would say or do if me then met me now. It's not pretty. Mm. And as much as I'm talking about how I love what I do, I've sacrificed my happiness long time ago. And it's not a move that I recommend, because when money becomes the goal, you're never satisfied. It's the design of money. And that's the thing, is we all live these lives. I mean, you guys have been to my apartment. I hate it here. And I pay a lot of money to live here. And that's because I thought I needed this. Mm-hmm. I was happier living, well, A, with a roommate. I don't like living by myself because there's nobody to talk to with me. Right. But B, it was, the places that I lived weren't fancy. They were nice, but they were also half of what less than half. More than half? Less than half. If it was less money, this is why math counts, kids, and I'm not good at it.
Well, if it was less than half of what you're paying now, then that would
that
be
what you said, less than half of what I was paying now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is I'm just like, what did I get for this investment?
Well, a balcony you never go out on.
Never. I stood out on it yesterday and was like, this looks real bare, because some new neighbors moved in next door and they got their shit all put together.
Who's that guy that lives over next to us?
It's like, no, they just think it's no one lives there.
Yeah, right. It's just it's like a story.
Probably. Unit. I mean, 12, 13 hours out of the day, I'm not there.
Yeah.
And even before the cold weather hit, I was never outside on it. And it was 90% of the reason I picked this unit, was that terrace and how much entertaining and partying and hanging out I was going to do on there.
That never happened. Yeah.
It just goes to show you, it was the same thing. I was laughing with one of my former coworkers about my car, because I didn't go out to buy the car that I have, and it wasn't what I want. Now, I love Whitney. I've named her Whitney, by the way, Black Diva. I love her more than any car I've ever owned. But she costs money, and I don't like it. And I would have been happier in a smaller car. I'll never forget, my boss goes, I was going to buy a Mazda. And she was like, you can't buy a Mazda. You're executive committee. You need to get something nice. And I listened to her. And she didn't mean anything.
An RX-8?
Well, I mean, yeah.
What is an RX-8?
The Mazda RX-8?
Well,
look it up when we're done here. It's a beautiful car. We have a Mazda RX-8.
The CX-6?
It's not bigger. It's a sports car.
It's a sports car. It would have worked. If you're talking about,
do I look like a sports car kind of guy?
Hell yeah, I can see you getting into a
why not? See, a Miata.
Oh, a Miata too.
I got your Miata, buddy. I'm actually a truck and SUV kind of guy. I like to sit high.
You should have gotten like one of those. That's the one thing America makes well, is an SUV.
Yeah. But he has to put on airs. It's got to be like if he wanted a Jeep, he would have to get the Mercedes Jeep looking thing, which is just absolutely
no. I should have gotten a Jeep. But
yeah, right.
This thing, it called to me across the lot. Mm-hmm. And it's actually because the lights of it look like the Mazda CX-6 lights or the CX-6 or the Mazda 6. They've got that their lights look like they're smiling, like almost like a Joker smile, where it gets you know what I mean? This is a weird thing you guys probably know about me. I look at headlights, and every headlight looks like somebody's smile. I correlate every headlight with someone's smile. And definitely I thought my car's smile was for me. She was smiling at me.
The Kyle half smile? From across the line. He's and it like even did a little bit of turn.
No, it was also turning. The guy who was driving it was
turning
towards
it.
you. So you only saw half the smile.
There she
I got
is.
the full smile from her, but but to this day, when I make my monthly payments, I'm like, I could have been a lot happier with half the payment that I'm making.
Yeah.
But I put money in front of a status, not money, status.
Yeah.
Status in front of
I needed everybody to know I had arrived. I haven't arrived at shit. And I think that's the thing is we're all putting on these images. What if we were just real with each other? You know what I mean? What if we were just real people enjoying the moments that we have? I had this freak out moment at work before I came home where, I don't know, this girl at work bought this blood pressure cuff and put it on me, and my blood pressure was, I think for $20 she got robbed. I'm hoping. Because it said my blood pressure I should be dead. And we joked about it. And I thought, if today's my last day, man, did I waste a lot of time trying to do and prove to a lot of people who don't care. Not that they don't matter, they just don't care. Stuff that I think people care about and that I think people want to see me do or say or be. Most people don't care. They're too busy trying to worry about shit about them that other people don't care about. You know what I mean? And we all play these stupid games instead of just existing and enjoying life.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got to that topic.
We did take a weird meandering road. We talked about cars, which I didn't think, if you were to ask me, like, will you talk about cars with Kyle Jackson on the podcast? I've been like, I don't see a possible way to get there.
Yeah.
Will we talk about the half smile? That was guaranteed.
Alternators, carburetors. I'm just trying to say car words to sound like I know.
Alternators and the carburetors, and the transmission, and
the what's the belt? They have a
timing belt.
Timing belt. There you go. Timing belt.
Hey!
Well,
don't ask me to explain what that is.
It times things. That's how you know if your clock's not right. The timing.
I started to believe you. Fuck you, Jack. That's not fair. I was like, oh yeah. Wait, no.
You go in there and you're
right.
My clock is wrong. There must be something wrong with my timing belt. Do you ever have that when your battery dies and you turn on the car and the timer belt is all off?
Hey, another really quick thing. If you ever have the check engine light in, you gotta pop the hood, and make sure the engine's still there.
Yeah, that's right.
What it's telling you to do.
Just a quick warning. It comes off every so often.
Well, I mean, sometimes
and then if it stays
pops
on,
out,
no. Well, even if the light stays on, and you check it a couple times, and it's still there. It just means the light's broken, and you could just unscrew that bulb.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that could be true.
Don't do that to Whitney.
Well, anyway,
yeah. Her check engine light comes on. I lift up the hood and I say, "Hey, girl, you doing all right? Just checking on you."
Yep, that's all you have to do, honestly.
Sometimes all they want is a little attention, don't we all?
Yep, that's true. Cars are humans.
And humans are cars. And FedEx delivers via train.
Science. Via train.
You ever hear a loud rumble and you know the old FedEx trains are coming. So Kyle, this has been great. We usually end off with some words of wisdom. Anything that you think that was, pointed from the conversation we just had that you want to double emphasize on or something completely out of the blue. Financial advice.
Yeah, right.
Always welcome.
So, I guess in summation of that, I keep wanting to say potluck, but that wasn't potluck. What's it when you throw a bunch of stuff in it? Like witches do it?
A melting pot.
Melting pot of ideas that we had. I want to get back to just stating what, just for my life. I can't speak for anyone else's life. Do what you're passionate about. and you'll never work a day in your life. I'm joking. But it is what you do matters. And 2020, I started a phrase back when I was in college and I was in my fraternity, and I used to have to write an inspirational quote in everybody's black book. And I used to always write that we may fall, we may get knocked down, we may fall, we may be counted out, but we will rise stronger than ever before because we endured. Mm-hmm. And that is actually something that I tell myself every single day, is endure the race. And that's where the reward is first you have to decide you're racing towards something. And then you have to decide, no matter what, I'm going to make it through this. And that's really it. That, and another quote was just, making money is the easiest thing you'll ever do in life. And I laughed when I heard that at 19 years old. And now I realize anybody can make money. Very few people do what they love.
Yeah. There you go.
I wish I had like some zinger on there, but we can't all have half smile moments where I turn around and look at you.
You turn around and
the food tier guys. Definitely just delivered this. Sorry.
Oh, this is great. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on. Please talk to me again at some time. Like, yeah, we're done being friends with that guy.
We got him on the podcast. That's all he wanted.